Yes, my mother was very active in the NAACP. Well, my dad was too, but I think she was vice president and she became president of the NAACP here. They were finding that the black graduates were literally being pulled out of line when they were getting ready to walk across the stage. There was 1 or 2 credits they found and they couldn't graduate. And it was just happening to the black graduates.
And that summer was crazy for so many reasons.
It was the summer of George Floyd,
Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor.
and our university, in a response, they sent an email that a lot of Black students felt it was ingenuine. There was nothing that said, we actually care about this. These are the things that we're experiencing.
Say, being Black in Wichita Falls, feel like I'm always being watched, whether that's, say, here at MSU or just locally going to the grocery store. I have to make sure I'm always on my best behavior.
I didn't realize that there were so many things that I could, come in contact with during my time here versus when I go back home to the Metroplex. So between the racism and just looking for entertainment, making friends is quite difficult.
It's really different. I feel like certain times during the day or nights, I'm very cautious of things that goes on or don't go out at all. It's very sometimes uncomfortable. On campus, I don't feel as much as that, but as I venture out to get groceries or things like that, it's very, I get a lot of eyes. It's very uncomfortable.
The only time I was really aware of my presence in Wichita Falls as a Black woman was maybe during the election time. I was told by a lot of people, hey, maybe don't go off campus at this time, or you're driving around and you see a lot of like Trump flags and stuff, and that makes you very aware and cautious of your surroundings. But
I haven't found a lot of young Black professionals in Wichita Falls, so that obviously has impacted my social life, social engagement. Obviously, there is a Black community here, just it's not a vibrant one, and so it has been kind of challenging.
I knew I had to be careful of what I say, because at the end of the day, it can come back at me. Being Black is an issue, so the stuff that we say, we just have to be really careful.
One time I was walking just outside the president's house, and some guys in a truck yelled out, "nigga," to me. And I was like, that's so weird, because I never felt like a nigga or like just like a Black person. Or I never felt that the color of my skin could be something so bothersome that you had to put your head out of a car while I'm minding my business and you try to mind mine and call me names. That's berating. To me, I just think that's ridiculous.
Seeing as it's like mostly white dominated, like in the city, me being non-white, like in the spaces that I'm in, like if I go to a restaurant, if I go to like Walmart, it's definitely more apparent of like who I am.
And I can only imagine how difficult that is for students on our campus, that they have to engage in courses where they don't have faculty members that look like them. And it's possible that they can matriculate their entire years at the university without walking into a class. Then also, there aren't any course offerings that speak to their racial identity, their historical identity, and that was another thing. Obviously, at an HBCU, African-American literature, African-American history, things of that nature are, kind of primary, whereas, MSU doesn't even offer those.
And included in people's degree plan, because if you ask people to take courses and they don't get credit for it, that means, it's just money.
Kind of frustrating because I needed a philosophy credit. Classes cost money. I chose that one, and at the time, my advisor, she was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So I'm thinking, I'm learning about my culture, knocking out a credit. This is cool. Come to find out, it was the only philosophy credit, literally the only one that didn't count. And I ended up having to spend more money, take another philosophy class, push my graduation date back. It just kind of leaves you wondering, like, why? Why that? And it's also no longer here.
Emphasize cultural awareness, real history, not only about Black history or anything, but about, all different, like, cultural history.
We had this reading called the Combahee River Collective, And it was just a reading filled with like Black women, Black feminism, basically, just a whole book on that. I've never like had a class that like was dedicated to Black feminism.
I think being Black at MSU means switching all the time. How I'm talking to a friend in class is not how I talk to a friend outside of class. It's like wearing a coat in the cold weather, and when you get home, you can finally take it off.
Even today, not that I don't feel comfortable around you guys, but like I had a wave cap on, and I was like, whoa, let me take this wave cap off. I don't want to look too Black, but that's just like an everyday thing that, just kind of go through.
Amnesty held the Justice for like Breonna Taylor rally.
We were asking, me and a couple of friends who were on our way there, we were asking, Black students, like, hey, are you interested in coming to this this peaceful protest or whatever? Is there anything that you would like to say? And so during that, there were a lot of people who claimed to be allies. They almost made it into white saviorism. That's not what that time was. It was time to lay her to rest. It was time to say her name.
We were having an event dealing with like misconceptions, things that Black people struggle with. And then I don't remember if it was a person who came up to me, but I do remember this being said that like, oh, I'm sorry, but I don't know what to do. Like, like I just feel so bad about being white, like all these type of, phrases that are not uncommon. And I was just like, that's not the point of that conversation that we just had. It was for you to be aware. You entered a Black space and you were curious enough to come and walk into the space and hear people's stories. And somehow you still made it about you. It's not my job to comfort you.
Oh, being Black at MSU, so they give me a chance to stand out.
It was actually a mass comm class, and we were talking about Huckleberry Finn in the class, and the professor would just say like, is the N-word really that powerful, or do people just give it power? And then he essentially started talking about other slurs for other races and cultures. And for me personally, I was kind of like, why would you bring that up? Because it's like I felt the whole class instantly go like, is she gonna say something? Is she gonna say something? I felt put on the spot to see if I would be the one to do it. And it just was a very uncomfortable situation, because I feel like if it doesn't necessarily offend you, then you shouldn't have the opinion.
Went to the bookstore again so that I could purchase my cap, gown, and my hood. So I asked one of the people who worked there, like, hey, where can I get the cap? And she kind of like hesitated a little bit. She looked at my head and she was like, yeah, I noticed that you have Black people hair. I think that this XL cap may fit you better than, like a regular size cap. I don't understand why the focus on my hair, being more tightly coiled than the next person has anything to do with my cap size. And even if that was a concern, I've graduated before. I've worn a cap before. And so I'm a little startled at the fact that she's saying this right now. And then she goes on to say, like, I'm not sure how you're going to tame that. In my head, I'm like, tame? What are these word choices? It was followed up by saying, like, what do you plan to do with your hair? I'm like, I haven't thought about that. Like, today is supposed to be a good day. I came in here for my cap, my gown, and my hood. Because when I came in here a couple weeks ago, I was told that I could not pick those things up.
Being Black here at MSU, honestly feel like there's no one to represent us in a way, to stand up for us and give us the same advantages and leeway and privileges of other students that are not Black.
You already been perceived a certain way, and you don't want to be perceived as that.
First of all, I'm Black, but I'm not Black American. I'm from the Caribbean, so I'm an international Black person. And teachers as well as students don't understand me very well. Sometimes we can kind of get picked on in class because it might come off as being a know-it-all, but it's not. We just care about our work. And then I think too, a few teachers and students have prejudice based off of maybe experience or from word of mouth, and you can kind of feel that energy.
I had a professor. He asked questions, but he asked them in a way as if like you're remedial. In some cases, I can brush it off, but in some cases, I feel like, okay, you were really just messing with me.
And if you look at the retention rate for Black men at MSU, it's not very great because you draw these people in, whether it's for sports or whether, it's all these false promises. They get here, they understand what their culture is here, and then they leave after a year.
Or I had a stereotype as coming to school just to have fun. And the first year or two was just seen as, well, he'll be gone in a year or so. So, let's not pay any attention or any mind. I was just a number in a big scale.
I think that it's possible for change if, we get help from the higher ups. There's only so much that Black Student Union can do. There's only so much that Amnesty can do, just the Black students here on campus can do.
So Black graduation was my baby. I had heard about other universities leading ceremonies to celebrate Black accomplishment and Black success. Looking at retention rates as well as graduation rates for Black students, I was like, this is needed. It was meant to just be something to celebrate the different experiences. At regular commencement, you're told, don't cheer, don't be too loud. In the Black community, those are the ways that we show appreciation. And I was met with resistance. I was kind of told it won't happen. And I talked with a couple of people who were also interested. We asked for sponsorships all around the community. We made the first Black graduation happen on, I think, $250.
There are those barriers to where I feel like on campus, we don't really get as much support as we should. And if it's anything, say, Black related, it gets pushed off, because there are instances where people, say students of other races, are able to get what they need when they need it. Say African-American students, we have to seem like a process for us.
We've done a rally in the past in collaboration with the Mosaic peer educators, and we did a march around campus for Breonna Taylor.
It was something that I was really passionate about. It was something that I really wanted to do. I wanted to give the opportunity for students at a predominantly white institution to voice their opinion, to be a part of something greater. And at times it felt like the people I was to report to wanted to do it as a quote-unquote PR move. So that was a little frustrating too, because when you're trying to do something big and impactful, you need people willing to rally around you.
My hope for the future is that one, I would really love to see more faculty and staff of color in general, but specifically Blacks.
Whether you believe it or not, it does make a difference to us students. We'll see somebody that looks like us in higher power and we'll be like, I can be that too.
And also maybe some curriculum that will help shape the minds as far as diversity, equity, and inclusion. More resources, to see the Mosaic office grow into possibly their own building instead of just an office.
But I think dedicated spaces where students can gather and socialize and have space where they can kind of share their grievances, but also their experiences, making sure that space is allocated as well as the opportunity for students to feel like MSU is hearing them.
A administration that's more willing to actively listen to its Black students.
I just hope for a strong community, a sense of community that, anywhere that Black people go, you want to feel a sense of comfort.
I hope that MSU will cater to students of color more than they have in the past. Not only Black students, but also Hispanic students, Asian students, Middle Eastern students, African students, all of the different diasporas.
Start not just speaking about equalism and diversity, but actually acting on it.
I hope for inclusion in the ways that are equitable for people. Yes, there's equal opportunity, but is there equitable opportunity? That's what I hope for MSU Texas, equitable opportunity.
There are people who look like me at this school. Race is just a figment of our imagination. It's just a social construct created by society to divide us. Being Black means I'm special just because all God's children are special in their own way, and I'm God's child.
So what are you going to do? What are you going to boycott? Boycotting works? It does. So on campus, what can you boycott? What can you do? Where can you sit in? What can you do when you're not afraid to lose your scholarship or for them not to harass you or berate you? or teachers not to pull you out of class or flunk you. That we encourage the students on campus, no matter what your color is, to stay in the fight.